Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ogden. I'm Dylan Zwick, and I'm the worship lead today. Please put your phones on silent, but feel free to take pictures of the service and to post what you hear and see online. Send the message to the broader community. If you're new here today, welcome. Thank you for coming. Fill out a visitor card in the pews and put it in the offering basket when it comes by later. And please stay and chat with us after the service. The UU Church is an open, tolerant place where diversity of thought is encouraged, sought, and appreciated. Doesn't matter who you love or how you identify yourself. We come here because we want to think for ourselves. We ask questions, value the exchange of ideas, want to hear from others, and want to be challenged. There are a range of beliefs among those here. Generally, though, we believe in caring for the planet and for one another. We are a lay-led ministry, which means the messages come from everyone here, and accordingly, the presence of each and every one of you adds to the atmosphere, and we're glad you're here. A few announcements. So the theme of today's service is welcome, and so this is well along those lines. We're looking to restart our membership committee, and we're looking for volunteers. The membership committee is responsible for reaching out to potential new members and helping them become a part of our church, along with keeping up with current members. If you'd be interested in being a part of this, please let me know. And thank you very much to those who've already volunteered. I'll be reaching out to you with more details soon. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which you probably all know also goes by the term the Mormons, is hosting an interfaith concert in the Ogden, Utah Tabernacle on Sunday, September 10th at 7 p.m. Admission is free and tickets are not needed. However, if you'd like to sit in an area as a group, we can. Please let me know if you'd like to come, and I can get you tickets.
What time is it?
What was that?
What time is the show?
The show is at 7 p.m. on Sunday, September 10th, so 1 week from today. Tickets are not needed for admission. However, they have certain areas that are saved for groups. So if you want to sit together as part of a group, let me know and we can make sure to get you tickets for that group.
Thank you.
Cool. We're looking for volunteers for the Harvest Moon Festival voter registration drive on Saturday, September 16th at historic 25th Street. This is one of Ogden's biggest family events of the year, so thousands of people will descend on historic 25th Street to celebrate the beginning of fall with food, crafts, many children activities, and we hope voter registration. So we need folks for about 2.5-hour shifts from noon to 7 p.m. And if you don't have any experience, that's no problem. We'll train you on site. To volunteer, you can sign up online. There's a link on our newsletter here, but I think you can also ask Karen. And then Karen, I think you have another announcement about the Girl Scout.
And this is on with, and voter registration is actually one of the things that we committed to as part of our social justice initiatives. But two more, we are starting the Girl Scout troop. And this coming Wednesday at 6 o'clock, 6 to 7 p.m., we're having our kickoff event. And anyone who has a child in the age group K through 3rd grade is welcome to come and bring them and good grandchildren. And it's also an opportunity to just find out more about how Girl Scouts work and so forth. And if you personally want to volunteer, that'd be great. It's going to be here at First Presbyterian in the gym where we have coffee across the way. And it is a joint project of First Presbyterian and the UUCO. The second thing is, I'm sorry to tell you about this one, on the 16th of September, same night day as Harvest Moon. And by the way, I just need one more volunteer for Harvest Moon for the last shift. That we will also be co-hosting a delegation, we'll call it that, to walk in the New Hope Suicide Awareness and Prevention Walk. And that takes place at 11 a.m. in the amphitheater on the 16th. And you just you get a t-shirt, and if we get together and walk as a group, that would be great. It's also an opportunity to remember and honor those we've lost to suicide, friends and family. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And then one final announcement, we don't have a slide for it, but the reason that we switched up our order a little bit this month in terms of on-site versus services we're joining remotely is that next Sunday, Salt Lake City's new called minister, Jay Sylvan, will be there for the first time. So we figured it would be nice to join them. So we will be joining them remotely here in our chapel. We'd love to see you here, but if you can't make it here, you can also join remotely from home. But I think that'll be a good service. Joseph, can you? Our chalice lighting words today are a poem titled Invitation by Shel Silverstein. If you are a dreamer, come in. If you are a dreamer, a wisher, a liar, a hoper, a prayer, a magic bean buyer. If you're a pretender, come sit by the fire, for we have some flax golden tales to spin. Come in, come in. Now we'll light our chalice today. Will our chalice lighter please come forward? And please join us all in the lighting of our chalice. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, and for the energy of action. Thank you, Maribel. Our opening hymn today is We Would Be Numb, or We Would Be One, sorry, which is number 318 in your hardback hymnal. So a modification from the order of service. Our opening reading is not going to be Community Means Strength by Starhawk, but an opinion piece from a few months ago in the New York Times called What Churches Offer That Nuns Still Look For. It's by Jessica Gross, and it was the 5th in a 5-part series. I started this series because I felt that the rise of the nuns, Americans who say they have no formal religious affiliation, was one of the biggest, most complicated, and most misunderstood changes in society in the past half-century. And my sense was that the subject had been discussed mostly among people who had strong, polarizing opinions about this change, either atheists who cheered it on, or religiously observants who decried it. As I started my reporting, my own feelings about the rise of nuns was somewhat ambivalent. I'm Jewish and still have a strong cultural identity, but I'm not observant. I don't miss shul and have little desire to return, yet I feel a bit heartsick about not passing down Jewish rituals with more consistency to my children. After months of reading about this massive change and having had quite a few deep and very moving conversations with some of the over 7,000 readers who responded to my initial call out about becoming less religious over time, the one aspect of religion in America that I unquestionably see as an overall positive for society is the ready-made supportive community that churchgoers can access. When I say churchgoers, of course, I mean those who attend church, temple, mosque, gurdwara, friends meeting, or any of the many traditional houses of worship in America. The idea of community connects them all. Community was mentioned in over 2,300 reader responses. As the reader Julie Prado, 50, from Washington State, wrote to me, I was raised Pentecostal and went to church 3 or more times a week, so I desperately missed the community. It was where my friendships came from. I have very few friends now. Prado told me she isn't part of a church because she hasn't found one that fully affirms gay people or believes as strongly as she does in the separation of church and state. Okay. I have joined groups that are fighting for these things, she said, like Christians Against Christian Nationalism, but they don't provide the same kind of social fabric that her church did. I asked every sociologist I interviewed whether communities created around secular activities outside of houses of worship could give the same level of wraparound support that churches, temples, and mosques are able to offer. Nearly across the board, the answer was no. Phil Zuckerman, a professor of sociology and secular studies at Pitzer College, put it this way. I can go play soccer on a Sunday morning and hang out with people from different races and different class backgrounds, and we can bond. But I'm not doing that with my grandparents and my grandchildren. A soccer team can't provide spiritual solace in the face of death. It probably doesn't have a weekly charitable call, and there's no sense of connection to a heritage that goes back generations. You can get bits and pieces of these disparate qualities elsewhere, he said, but there's no one-stop shop, at least not right now. That doesn't mean Americans can't or don't cobble together their own support network and senses of meaning without organized religion. Clearly, many do. But the group of Americans who are moving away from religion in the most significant percentage may have the hardest time building community from scratch because they are often shortest on time and resources. As I noted in part 4 of this series, every demographic group in the United States is becoming less religious, but groups that are overrepresented among people with no religion in particular are those without high school diplomas, who are single, who don't have children, and who earn less than $50,000 a year. This trend complicates, if not contradicts, the commonly held notion that religion is most deeply rooted among working Americans and less among the chattering class. But as Ryan Burge explains in The Nuns, where they came from, who they are, and where they are going, data from the comprehensive cooperative election study show that in America, those with the lowest level of education are more likely to say that they have no religious affiliation than those with the highest level of education. In his book, Burge, a pastor and political scientist at Eastern Illinois University, disaggregates the umbrella category of nuns into three groups: atheists, agnostics, and nothing in particulars. Atheists believe there is no God. Agnostics are open to the possibility, but not convinced that God or gods exist. And nothing in particulars don't align themselves with any specific faith tradition. And Burge has a helpful way of roughing out the terrain. If all the nuns were represented by just 5 people, one of them would be an atheist, another one would be agnostic, and 3 of them would be nothing in particular. He writes that 32% of those who did not earn a high school diploma identified as nuns, the highest percentage of any educational level. And while half of the overall population of the United States earns less than $50,000 per year in household income, 60% of the nothing in particulars earn less. He notes that nothing in particulars are one of the most educationally and economically disadvantaged groups in the United States today, while atheists and agnostics enjoy much higher levels of economic success. What this suggests to me, and to scholars I've spoken to over the past few months, is that there's a substantial group of Americans who are grappling with societal pressures on multiple fronts. Americans who are further down the socioeconomic ladder are lonelier than their more economically well-off counterparts. Americans with lower levels of education have higher mortality rates, and those are some of the same Americans who are alienated from religious institutions, even if many of them still believe in God. As the authors of the great De-Churching, Who's Leaving, Why Are They Going, and What Will It Take to Bring Them Back, all of whom are pastors, write, in our opinion, America is largely built for a specific type of person. If you belong to a nuclear family, graduate from college, and have children after marriage, America's institutions tend to work better for you. You get off that track or never started on it, the US is a more difficult place in which to thrive. They go on to say that church culture can feel unwelcoming and even shaming to people who are struggling financially or have family structures outside of the model they describe. What's more, they write that modern American churches are financially incentivized to target the wealthy and create a space where those on track feel comfortable. Biblical hospitality, though, is so much more than just throwing money at a problem. And the net result is that the average American church is not truly hospitable to the less fortunate, making them feel like outsiders in our midst. Many readers who replied to my query mentioned leaving churches that rejected them during their divorces. Others talked about being constantly hit up for money they couldn't afford to donate. I'd like to see faith communities do a better job of including people who aren't on that, if you will, ordained track. Not because I think people need to be religious to live good lives, I don't believe that, but because almost everyone needs community to flourish. As the Harvard political scientist Robert Putnam, whom I spoke to for this series and who wrote Bowling Alone, The Collapse and Revival of American Community, has been preaching for decades, increasing social isolation is bad for all of us. As Carson Curtis, 36, who lives in Arizona, wrote about missing a general sense of community from attending church. Being socially atomized is hard on the spirit. Burge told me a story about his church that illustrated organized religion at its best. He described a section of the service where they asked for prayers of the people, where members of the congregation would describe a tough situation and ask for prayers. A young man, probably in his early 20s, with a baby, said he had just lost his job and wouldn't make rent that month, and asked if the congregation would pray for him. Bird said an older man in the congregation went up to the young man after the service and said, "Son, if you need a job, you can come work for me tomorrow." While that might sound like a scene from a Frank Capra movie, church really does wind up being one of the few places that people from different walks of life can interact with and help one another. At the same time, examples of that kind of grace don't erase the damage that is sometimes done in the name of religion. Americans of all backgrounds are clearly in the midst of a profound shift away from trusting many different kinds of institutions beyond just religious ones. And sometimes there are good reasons behind this lack of trust. There's a lot of pain and alienation fueling many people's rejection of their religious upbringing. I've heard so many stories of racial prejudice, misogyny, and outright abuse over the course of my reporting. This is a betrayal and a failure. This shift is ongoing and gaining speed. After talking to readers searching for fresh answers to life's eternal question, I believe that there is potential for new kinds of meaningful, lasting communities to be created in the coming years that have nothing to do with organized religion as we know it. I'm eager to see what comes next, because I believe that out of this evolution, Americans create something nurturing that is also suited to modern life. Now, our service today is based upon the theme of welcome, which was the theme for Soul Matters this month. And our main talk is a sermon by the Reverend Karen Anderson called Sharing the Good News on Welcoming Others to Our Faith. In the past, I've done the following, which perhaps I shouldn't admit, but for today's purposes, it's important. Here it is. When I'd see them walking down my driveway, I'd hide. I'd crouch behind a chair in the living room and tell the kids to be quiet and then wait. The doorbell rings. "I'll get it," yells one of my kids. No, I'd say. "Be quiet. Act like we're not home." "What's your problem, Mom?" one of the kids will ask. Nothing, just shh. The bell rings again. I'd ignore it. What am I hiding from? The religious rite. Black pants, black dress shoes, white shirt, black tie, backpack, buddy system. The Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses are at my door, and I'm crouched behind a chair, hoping they will leave me alone. Does this sound pathetic? Evasive? Juvenile?
Normal.
Any of you do it too? Okay. So those of you who don't hide, does the word evangelical, proselytizing, creep you out? Make your skin crawl? Or give you the heebie-jeebies? At least just a little bit?
Yes.
I thought so. You see, for me, as I crouched behind my chair, two things usually went through my head. Number one, I was grateful for their offering, their outreach. I was, honestly. Cross my heart and hope to die. They're selling a product, a theological construct that indeed saves people's lives. I don't doubt that. On the whole, I'm incredibly grateful that there are religious traditions out there that fit personalities and ideologies different from my own. So there are less people wandering in the wilderness. Places that can definitively give people the answers to life, borders around their ambiguity, and offer a haven or even a heaven for those struggling with how to keep going on. So on one level, I'm grateful for that knock on the door. They're serving a particular need, not my need, and my little caveat is, as long as their beliefs don't threaten or harm others, then yes, it is true, they do help certain groups of people. So that's the first reaction. Here's the second. What happens next as I sit behind that chair is a daydream. I daydream about what life would be like if I hadn't found this religious tradition and how lost and isolated I'd feel. Without this tradition, what would I do? I know I'd feel somewhat, if not seriously, disconnected. I know that I'd feel shunned on some level. Because if you say you are a non-theist, or use the dreaded A word to folks, all of a sudden you are judged and thrown in the garbage dump of moral impropriety with murderers, rapists, and, well, other atheists. So that said, without our tradition, I could try a liberal Christian church, which might be okay, but I'd have a lot of translating of language, rituals, and theological constructs. Or I could go to the local Zen center, but my penchant for putting my values into action, my quest for social justice, likely would not make it a good fit. And besides, I had children who grew up in the church, and that mattered to me. So where should I go? Then as I sit behind that chair and think of others I know and a lot I don't know and wonder where they would go. All those couples who once grew up Catholic, or where one grew up Catholic and the other one is Jewish, where one grew up Muslim and the other one is Hindu, one grew up Lutheran and the other unchurched and agnostic. What about them? Where do they go without this faith? Without knowing about this religious tradition, would they feel isolated, vulnerable, and disconnected too? Then I think about the LGBTQ community that can go to some Christian communities that preach hate the sin and love the sinner, and wonder if they feel out of whack with their religious community and are longing to know about churches like ours. There are also Christian communities that proclaim they are open to the LGBTQ community and have big rainbow flags on their website or in their sanctuary, so people feel like, these are my people. But then turns out they had issues for those who are trans or gender fluid or gender binary. Finally, there are even those who aren't part of any religious community and through subtle and not so subtle ways, sometimes want to climb back into the closet because they feel like second-class citizens and vulnerable to judgment and shame. Where do they go? I think about all those parents wanting to raise their children with strong character and moral values, but question whether or not there is a church that will stand by them when they believe all the world's religious traditions have something to offer their child, not just the ones they are being taught. Where do they go if they don't know about us? And by the time I am done with squatting behind my chair, I stand because I feel buoyant and am incredibly grateful that our congregations offer a different kind of good news. I am proud and honored by our tradition. Now, let me be very clear. When I talk about all this smiling and pride over who we are, I'm not saying we're perfect. In fact, thanks to our movement's leaders, as well as a ton of brave UU leaders of color, we are realizing that all of our UU congregations need to keep learning and keep reforming so we are truly welcoming and not harming of people of color. This work is important and a priority. And right alongside our decentering and anti-racism work, there is also this work of getting comfortable sharing who we are. And again, when it comes to that, as I said, I get giddy, but also sad. Because I realize how many people there are They're not feeling relief, gratitude, inspiration, and belonging for only one reason. They don't know about us. They don't know about this faith tradition. In fact, I think they might even be a little ticked off at us. What do I mean by that? Well, I think my colleague, Reverend Nathan Dettering, gets at this best. He says, for years, we've assumed that the people who need us would eventually find us without our help. We've sometimes let our reaction against religious conservatism keep us from doing or affirming anything that might lead people to think we're actually religious ourselves. And as a result, we've missed many, many opportunities to make a positive difference in the world and in people's lives. That line's a zinger. We've missed many, many opportunities to make a positive difference in the world and in people's lives. Geez, is he on with that one? Because I guarantee you that those other folks who are hiding behind their chairs or sofas in their living rooms when the religious right comes to call don't have the same reaction I do. They aren't grateful Unitarian Universalism is around. Instead, they are left isolated, lonely, vulnerable, and disconnected because they don't know about us. By the way, it's not their fault, it's ours. And if they know any of you, folks they love and trust, and you didn't tell them about a place that could get them connected, help them live without isolation, feel welcome and accepted and feel home, perhaps for the first time in their life, and you didn't tell them about it, then, well, it's my guess, they'd have every right to call each and every one of you selfish. Yes, that's right, selfish. Here's why, my friends, and just think about this. If you're willing to tell them about your favorite local pizza joint, but not about the place that gives your life spiritual grounding, meaning, connection, and inspiration, then they'd be right to be, well, a little ticked off. Because all they want to do is share, to simply let them know we are out there. And when you tell them we are out there, tell them there's a home for them. A fellowship like ours that takes seriously deeds over any creed, that is about acceptance, not exclusion, an open spirituality over an enforced conformity. A place that cares about living well in this life rather than worrying about the next. Tell them we're here. You see, when your friends ask you to share your faith with them, they are asking you to share the good news, our good news. And make no mistake, we do indeed have a distinctive way of sharing. Ours is more an if you are this option rather than a you should believe this option. Ours is an invitation rather than an argument or debate. Ours is an offering rather than an imposing, convincing, or a damning if you don't. What do I mean? Well, let's take the standard you should option. This argument goes that you should like Italian food rather than Thai food, and let me tell you why Italian is better than Thai. In contrast, our offering of our faith is more like this. If you like Thai food, man, we've got some of the best Thai food available. In the starting point class I offer for newcomers, I often say, if you are feeling this deep sense of sinfulness or a need to be forgiven, that's okay. But we may not be the best place for you. But if you are struggling with disconnection and you want a deeper connection to yourself, others, and life, then we have something to offer you. We're not even saying ours is better or worse than that other option, just different, just focused on different needs. We are saying, though, if you are feeling life is shallow and thin, then hey, we have a fellowship for you. If you're after connection, then come on over, and you'll find others striving to connect with their deepest self, life's gifts, and serving needs greater than their own. We will indeed welcome you for the unique and beautiful human being that you are. Again, this is about sharing in options, not about arguing for the best idea. Another way to get at this, if you are approached, is brilliantly crafted by my colleague, Reverend Don Rollins. If you think the real difference between straight folk and gay folk is that straight folk can publicly express their affections and identity without risking their job, homes, or safety, you might like Unitarian Universalism. If you experience a connection to nature and other human beings, if you think you're responsible for your own mind, body, and spirit, if you know that you don't know every answer to every question, then you might like our churches. If you're not afraid of humanists, who aren't afraid of pagans, who aren't afraid of theists, who aren't afraid of atheists, who aren't afraid of Hindus, Jews, Muslims, Christians, or Buddhists, you might dig Unitarian Universalism. If you are fairly sure that face and body piercings do not themselves signal the end of Western civilization, and if you actually like having your cage rattled every once in a while, well, you'd like my church. If you're just irreverent enough to get at least a smirk from Tom Waite's observation that there ain't no devil, there's just God when he's drunk. If you're ashamed at the amount of press coverage given to the debate about the place of God in the Pledge of Allegiance in a nation where 1/6 of the children are hungry and healthcare is considered non-essential, then my friends, I have the church for you. In the end, there's a hurting world out there, a world that puts barriers between us, a world that needs us, needs you, you wonderful people of good faith and good works and good hearts, to share that we are here in this community, to welcome in all you think would feel like they finally are home. Sometimes I think it hard to imagine what this might look like or what it might mean, but let's try. Imagine if you were at the coffee shop and there was a person reading some dystopian novel, 1984, Brave New World, or the myriad of lists, or on the myriad of lists that are now banned. And you walk up to them and say, hey, this may sound strange, but we have a banned book club at my church and we are reading The Handmaid's Tale. We gather together because we believe banning books is censoring ideas, thought, history, and freedom. We believe books should expand your imagination and heart, not close you off to diversity of thought and people. Anyways, you're welcome to join us if you're interested. So perhaps this person takes you up on your offer, and then this stranger comes to the book club, and they start coming to the fellowship, and in 3 months, this usually very shy person finds themselves at a school board meeting, now grounded in a moral certitude to stand in front of a bunch of people and remind them that we are only made better, kinder, more empathic with others when we can read about our various lifestyles, places, and ideas that are different than our own. We expand our humanity, not shrink it. And don't we want children who are kinder, more compassionate, who don't bully one another, than those who are told some people belong and some don't, which ultimately leads to bullying? Imagine if you were at the gas station filling up your car and this car pulls in next to you with a discreet rainbow bumper sticker and a coexist bumper sticker, and you say, hey, I know you don't know me, but I have found it hard to find like-minded folks in this community for a place to feel like I belonged, and if you feel that way too, you might really like the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We don't really care what it is you believe. You could be an atheist or theist or agnostic or Christian or even a Barnes and Nobleite. All that is fine. What we really care about is whether your beliefs help heal spiritual disconnection with, among, and beyond. The point is, we are very inclusive, loving, embracing community, and you might like us. Then 2 weeks later, they walk in the front door of the fellowship, and you say hi and welcome them. And you learn from them that they have a partner of the same sex and a kid who is gender fluid, and they felt like it's hard to decide where to live anymore, that at times their tenor of fear and hate that is seeping into so many corners of our country makes it hard to feel safe and seen. But after meeting you and coming to this place, they are reconsidering that worry. Because what they needed was a group of people who loved them for who they are, not for whom they wanted them to be. Imagine you're at your doctor's office, and your physician tells you that they have a colleague in a southern state who just got a notice from the state health department warning them that if they perform abortions or give the abortion pill to a patient, there will be consequences. Their friend's partner, who was a pharmacist, got the same letter, and they're appalled by the audacity and the vagueness of the threat. Your physician is horrified by this and feels isolated and lonely and sad, and feels like the creeping reach of conservative ideology could affect you no matter where you live. And you get up enough nerve to say to your physician, I don't know if you guys have a religious community, but if you don't, you might like the UU Fellowship. We believe that we are each responsible for our own mind, body, and spirit, that we all have moral agency over our own bodies. Maybe your doc shows up at our doors and they meet some other parishioners and they don't feel so alone or isolated. And after a little while, because they start coming here, they now have a faith that they can find other providers, along with their friends, that they can reach out to and connect with on this very issue that before felt so isolating to go it alone. And maybe that's the heart. Maybe that's what I'm trying to get at the most today. You don't have to go it alone. In the end, friends, that's all UU evangelism is. The willingness to let others know they don't have to go it alone and welcome them in. It's not that we know better. It's that we know what it's like to have to hide your beliefs or yourself because this often upside down culture of ours is scary. It's not that we want to save their souls. It's that we know isolation suffocates all of our souls. It's not that we want to argue or convince. It's that we feel grateful beyond words for what we've found here. And out of gratitude for that great gift, we want to share it. Here, inside these walls, we've all been told in a million different ways, you don't have to go it alone. It's too important of a message to stay stuck inside this lovely building. So how about friends? Let's bust it loose. Let's let it leak. Let's give to the world this beautiful gift we've been giving and offer a welcome like no other with open hearts, minds, and arms. May it be so. Amen. Our meditation today is by our former minister, Teresa Novak. Come into this place. There are healing waters here and hands with soothing balm to ease your troubled days. Bring your wounds and aching hearts, your scars too numb to feel, your questions and complaints, all are welcome here. Rest a while. Let the warmth of this community surround you, hold you, heal you. When you feel stronger, just a bit, notice those who need you too. They are here. They are everywhere. Weep with them, smile with them, work with them, laugh along the way. Pass the cup, drink the holy fire, take it with you into the world. We are saved and we save each other again, again, and yet again. Now take a moment to think. Or just relax your eyes, drift into the space of sacred silence as you think about those on your mind. We send healing thoughts of love to those struggling with any of the troubles that can afflict us in life. Now whisper and speak the names of others, lifting them up in this sacred space. Blessings on those named, and blessings too on those who named them. Blessings to all, and join me now in silent meditation or prayer. You are now invited to come forward to light a candle of hope, memory, or gratitude. You may also wish to drop a stone of burden or forgiveness in our sacred gathered waters. It can get crowded, but please form a line up here through the center. Now please join in calling for the offering. Now please stand in body or voice and facing the center aisle, sing together the offering song printed in your order of service. All right. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. Thank you for giving. This money helps this church, helps us in our effort to improve the world in big ways and small. Now please remain standing for our closing hymn, There's a River Flowing in My Soul, number 1007 from your soft-backed hymnal. Then it's me and I'm somebody. There's a river. Right. Our closing words today come from Alan Lightman. I wanted my daughter back as she was at age 10 or 20. As we moved together towards that lovely art that would swallow us all, other scenes flashed through my mind. My daughter in first grade holding a starfish as big as herself, her smile missing a tooth. I don't know why we long so much for permanence, why the fleeting nature of things so disturbs. With futility, we cling to the old wallet long after it's fallen apart. We visit and revisit the old neighborhood where we grew up. We clutch our old photographs. In our churches and synagogues and mosques, we pray to the everlasting and eternal. Yet in every nook and cranny, nature screams at the top of her lungs that nothing lasts, that it is all passing away. All that we see around us, including our own bodies, is shifting and evaporating, and one day will be gone. But might mortality grant a beauty and grandeur all its own? I think of the night blooming cereus, a plant that looks like a leathery weed most of the year. But for one night each summer, its flowers open to reveal silky white petals, which encircle yellow lace-like threads, and another whole flower like a tiny sea anemone within the outer flower. By morning, the flower is shriveled. One night of the year, as delicate and fleeting as a life in the universe. As the service comes to an end, please join me in saying the chalice extinguishing words in your order of service. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, nor the energy of Thank you very much for joining us, and now we'll close with our post.